I'd like to talk a little bit about Henri Bergson and his relation to Edmund Husserl and his Phenomenology, which is a big thing in the 20th century continental thought. Henri Bergson is a philosopher which is less well read, less well known, but it's still a really rich work, really rich work that he has, and it's just really good work to read. It's really, and especially if you like phenomenology. Basically, it's something that, I mean, basically his works are, of course, matter and memory, which I have here. Time and free will, creative evolution, duration, simultaneity, the two sources of morality and religion, the essay on laughter, and mind energy, which I have many of those. Basically, what I want to discuss in this video as to how Bergson's thought is related to phenomenology. What makes him different from the thought of Husserl and Heidegger, and basically what makes him different is he discusses bodily mechanisms. He in this book, particularly as in others, he goes against the idea of a psychological writer. His name was Ribot, R-I-B-O-T. He was a psychological writer who thought that that given a certain mental state that we have, there's a corresponding and correlating brain state, which is a physical brain state going on in our brain that correlates and corresponds. Bergson, in the first chapter, one of the things he rejects is that thing that came from Ribot, which was, and I would have to definitely agree that there isn't a direct correlation between those two kind of states. Yeah, there are some things in the brain, I think, that probably there are some brain states that will, be evident given certain mental states, like with anxiety, stress, emotion, anger, and such. There is going to be something going on here that any neuroscientist could probably recognize if he was able, because he kind of gives the thought experiment in here, where if we were able to, in a certain emotion, if we were able to crack open the brain, look at the cerebrum and the medulla oblongata and such, that he is thinking that, well, we probably wouldn't find as much as we think we could, or as much as people like Ribot would think we could. But what makes him similar to phenomenology is this basically his work, but mainly the thing I want to look at is a video. I've done a video about this already. Is that he rejects the ideas of realism and the ideas of idealism, and that is an awesome thing just to look at. He's basically looking at two systems of images, and I have a full video about that. I actually have a playlist which is growing of videos about the philosophy of Henri Bergson. But basically, that's one thing that makes Bergson like the phenomenologists that basically follow him. Now, Derrida and Foucault, which are in the later 20th century, they kind of equated, they kind of looked at Bergson and Husserl's similar. Derrida even said that, well, since I've actually in his book Speech of Phenomena, Derrida says, well, since I have refuted Husserl, Bergson being quite similar, the same refutation must follow. Foucault also said something similar. Deleuze, on the other hand, he has a book called Bergsonism, which is where he kind of sheds more light on the thought of Bergson, and he kind of states it to be distinguished from Husserlian phenomenology. I would think that there are definite similarities between Bergsonism and Husserlian phenomenology, but I honestly would have to think of them as distinct and different. And I think that basically because there's different products from each. There's different results of thought from each, and they think towards similar conclusions. The way they get towards their non-realistic and non-idealistic conclusions, they get there differently, and the results of that are different. So the fact that I think the way Bergson discusses realism and idealism with respect to them as systems of images is a very cool thing, and I think if you are interested in Husserl, I think that you'll be interested in Bergson as well. And in fact, I think that Bergson might be a little more easier to read than Husserl is. Someone might differ from me on that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. So, for Bergson, he talks about things in a epistemic fashion, where in Husserl does too. But he says that the way in which we come to knowledge of something is different from the way that the realists and the idealists say. The way we come to knowledge of things comes from that which we get it from. The way we have knowledge of X comes from our experience of X, and he refers to it as a representation or an image, which is confusing to people who read Bergson, because usually the connotation that comes from the word image or representation means that there's something that the image is the image of something, or that a representation is a representation of something else, and that represents something behind it. But what's being said here, like when he uses the term image, he's not saying that it's an image of something. That he's not giving the Kantian phenomena noumena thing. What he's saying is that they're just images. It's kind of like the Husserlian idea of a phenomena, where he says to the things themselves, to the things themselves, meaning to the phenomena themselves. Phenomenology being a science of phenomena or a science of sciences, and this is similar to that in that having knowledge of X has to do with X itself. The realist is saying that the realist is going to say something similar to that, but we'll say something like about having knowledge of it, which we really don't have knowledge of. Like a realist will say that, oh, this is a real objective being, which is real beyond me, and whether I'm seeing it or not is still there. That's kind of something of what a realist would say, but in fact we have no knowledge of that. Similar with a realist will say, that I have knowledge that this is that this thing that I'm seeing is a subjective object that is dependent upon me, dependent upon my seeing it. And when he departs from that, as does Husserl in the early 20th century, and Bergson says that basically, I'm trying to explain it further. Knowledge of this pen comes from that which it represents. But that's not meaning that there's something behind it that it's representing. But it just means that the knowledge of this thing comes from itself. It comes from the image itself. It comes from what I'm seeing of it. And that is where Bergsonism and phenomenology come together. That's how they are similar. There's a book that's an anthology, pretty much. It's a book of collected articles, which discuss Bergsonism and Omni Bergson's philosophy, as to how that relates to the phenomenology of Husserl and of Heidegger. And I cannot remember for the life of me who the editor is of that. But if you just search, the book is called Bergson and Phenomenology, and I've read it, and it has some really nice things in it, which can kind of make this similarity between Bergson's philosophy and phenomenology more clear. And if you want, much more stuff on this topic on how the two are similar, then that is the book that you should read. But I think that they should still be. I'm on the side of Deleuze here, not of Derrida and Foucault, where I think that Bergsonism should still be distinguished from the entirety of phenomenology of Husserl and Heidegger. So let me know what you think. I'd like to discuss this further.